We will now move to the research presentation.
You know, it's always a great pleasure to present the excellence of our faculty to the board in these presentations. And often they focus on STEM and biomedical research. But we also have excellence in the humanities, and today we have a great example of that. So today our presenter is Kathleen Fitzpatrick. She is Director of Digital Humanities and Professor of English. She received her BA and M.F.A. from Louisiana State University and her PhD from New York University, after which she began her career as an assistant professor in English and media studies at Pomona College. Her first book, The Anxiety of Obsolescence, The American Novel in the Age of Television, was published by Vanderbilt University Press in 2006. But the experience of publishing that book led her to focus her subsequent research on the ways that new digital novel networks might influence the development of scholarly publishing. In 2011, she published her second book, Planned Obsolescence, Publishing, Technology, and the Future of the Academy with NYU Press. That same year, she joined the senior staff of the Modern Language Association, the largest scholarly association in the humanities, as its inaugural director of scholarly communications. During her time at the MLA, she served as managing director of PMLA and other MLA publications, and she oversaw the development of the 8th edition of the MLA Handbook. Pardon me. Professor Fitzpatrick joined the faculty of MSU in 2017, where she worked with colleagues in the College of Arts and Letters and MSU Libraries to establish MESH, a research and development group focused on the future of digital scholarly communication. Her most recent book, Generous Thinking, A Radical Approach to Saving the University, was published by Press in 2019. And she is project director of the Humanities Commons, an open access, open source network serving more than 24,000 scholars and practitioners across the humanities and around the world. She is president of the Association of Computers and the Humanities, and she serves on the board of directors of the Educopia Institute and the Council on Library and Information Resources. Please welcome Dr. Kathleen Fitzpatrick.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me here today. I'm going to share my slides so that you can follow along with my talk. I hope that that is appearing for you. Yes. I'll begin. I very much appreciate the invitation to join you this morning and to talk a little bit about the work that I've been doing here at MSU. Higher education today, and especially public higher education, is facing a series of crises that seem to just keep mounting. COVID-19 and its budgetary fallout are only the most recent among them. Now, the causes behind these crises are complex, but many of them can be traced back to a single key shift in American thinking, where as a nation, we once professed, and at least in some ways acted upon the idea that higher education was and should be a public good, right, serving broadly social ends and deserving of broad social support. We've increasingly since the 1980s been driven to understand higher education instead as a private responsibility, serving individual goals and relying increasingly on private funding. Now, the implications of this shift are far-reaching, but they land us in the precarious situation in which we find ourselves today, in which financial considerations can lead the institution to make decisions that are not in full alignment with its mission, and in which public support for that mission continues to deteriorate. So how do we get out of this mess? I wish I were capable of laying out a solution for you in 6 minutes. Unfortunately, I'm not. But what I can tell you is this. One key, and perhaps even the key, to reclaiming public support, and not incidentally public funding for public higher education, lies in re-engaging the public directly in our mission and in all of the work that we do. In my recent book, Generous Thinking, A Radical Approach to Saving the University, explores a number of different means through which we might reach that goal. But in what time I have remaining, I want to focus in on one in particular, doing our work in public. After all, the public cannot be induced to care about or support the work that we do if they cannot see it. Now, in our traditional system of scholarly communication, researchers make the results of their work freely available, offering their articles to journal publishers without compensation. The benefits that researchers receive accrue in prestige, and the more exclusive the venue, the greater the rewards. But there are two key problems with this system. First, the financial rewards for this work go to journal publishers who sell the research that's been produced at universities back to universities through astronomical subscription fees. And second, the work is locked away where only those with access to such subscriptions can see it. Now, the open access movement has long argued that knowledge production will benefit from making the products of publicly funded research publicly available. Making more work accessible helps it achieve greater impact and allows the work to be more readily built upon. And open access publishing has direct benefits for institutions as well, helping them undo some of the budgetary damage that's been caused by extortionate journal subscriptions. However, the open access movement seeks not just to make the consumption of the products of research more equitable, but rather to make participation in the production of knowledge itself more equitable, even as we continue to uphold and even advance the forms of peer review that are the hallmark of scholarly work. Now, these goals require us to think beyond access. We need instead to think broadly about how and where scholarly work gets done. And we need to begin by taking a careful look at the platforms that we use for research today, especially at a moment like this, when we are utterly dependent on those platforms for reaching our colleagues, our students, and our communities. We need to consider the degree of control that we have over the platforms that we rely on most, and the extent to which the development of those platforms and the terms under which we use them are in keeping with our deepest values. And this is especially true of the platforms that control not only our publications, but all of the data that we produce on campus. After all, if social media platforms such as Facebook and Twitter have taught us nothing else in recent years, they have without question proven that giving away our data will cost us in the end. Or, as a friend of mine is fond of saying, if you're not at the table, you're the meal. Unless the Academy has a voice in the governance of the platforms on which academic work relies today, we will be at the mercy of those who do. So what's the alternative? My colleagues and I have spent the last several years developing an open source, open access, Academy-owned and governed platform supporting the work of scholars in their organizations and institutions. Humanities Commons is a network on which any interested user can create an account free of charge and use it to develop a public profile, to participate in group discussions and collaborations, and to use the open access repository to share their work with the world. We have 24,000 registered users who are working in fields across the humanities and in countries around the world who are making their work public and inviting discussion and participation in new kinds of research. The Humanities Commons was originally developed by the Modern Language Association and is this fall moving to MSU. Additionally, a collaboration between the College of Arts and Letters and the MSU libraries has led to the first Commons instance designed to support an institution of higher education. MSU Commons is open to all MSU faculty, staff, and students in any field. And through this network, MSU is leading the Academy in establishing an expanded knowledge network with a transformative potential to facilitate, disseminate, and preserve new work produced by public and connected scholars worldwide. Most importantly, all of this work is hosted at MSU on a platform that is owned by MSU and that is governed by and accountable to the academic organizations and institutions that contribute to its maintenance. We are grateful to have received significant support for the Commons from the Andrew W. Mellon Foundation, and we're grateful for the work that the Modern Language Association did in originating the project. We've recently received a $500,000 infrastructure and capacity building challenge grant from the National Endowment for the Humanities. And this grant, which calls upon us to produce a 3-to-1 fundraising match, will result in 7 years of support for the Commons team, enabling us to scale up to include more scholarly societies, more institutions, and of course, more researchers. And this is the heart of real sustainability for higher education today, and one potential step along the path out of the current crises. Understanding that higher education is and should be a knowledge commons whose assets are held in trust for the public that we serve calls upon us to invest public resources in infrastructure that we can govern, that will allow us to better direct our own future, and that will help us further our mission of serving the public good. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Fitzpatrick. That was an outstanding presentation. I'm going to just ask one quick question. And
Absolutely.
First of all, I'm very supportive, and the Commons is a remarkable step forward, I think, for the humanities. As I take a look at my old home in terms of STEM, one of the issues that comes across in the journal publications is it becomes a pathway to tenure, of course, and the quote caliber, I'll put, or prestige in quotation marks of the journal makes a difference. How does peer review kind of enter into the Commons and what gets posted or not posted, or is it not an element at all?
It is an extremely important element of a lot of the work that's taking place in the Commons, because researchers are able to reach one another and get feedback on their work directly from one another. We're actually taking that process of peer review and opening it up a bit. In fact, Generous Thinking, my recent book, went through an open peer review process on Humanities Commons. And so with the blessing of my press, we posted the entire draft manuscript. And instead of getting, 3 readers' reports on the book, I had almost 40 readers in commenting and giving me feedback. And that peer review is now part of the public record. It's visible. You can see what they commented on. You can see how my revisions developed out of those comments. And so it makes that entire process of scholarly exchange part of the work that we do, rather than something that's hidden behind the scenes.
Yeah, well, that's extraordinary and extraordinarily courageous, I think, in some sense on your part, but that I'm very impressed by that.
Well, thank you.
Anyone else have additional questions for Dr. Fitzpatrick? All right, hearing none. Thank you so much again for that presentation.
Thank you very much.
Work, and
thank you.
Helping you get the support you need for the Commons. So thank you.
Thank you.